Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a review on Season 1 of Vikings Valhalla. So, before I get into my thoughts and my feelings of Season 1 of Vikings Valhalla, I guess just a quick disclaimer, I don't plan on having any sort of spoilers in regards to this show, and since it is a spin-off of the original show Vikings, I'm probably going to try to stay clear of spoilers from that show as well. So yeah, in general, I'm going to try my best to stay away from spoilers if that's a concern of yours if you haven't watched this show yet. So yeah, let's get going. So what is Season 1 Vikings Valhalla all about? As I already mentioned, this is a sequel, a spin-off show to the History Channel's Vikings, which I absolutely loved. And this show is set 100 years after the original main show. And the main characters we're following this time around, because the original show focused on the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok and whatnot, and his son Bjorn Ironside and Ivar the Boneless. So this show, we're tackling Leif Erikson and his sister Freydis and Prince Harold. And you know what? I wish I had done some research on Prince Harold, because they kind of kept mentioning like he's going to be like a future king of Norway, and I actually meant to do some quick research to see if that is the case. So yeah, you guys. As I've already kind of hinted at, I really liked this spin-off show. You guys, I really enjoyed it. I think my primary concern heading into this season, because I was such a fan of the original Vikings TV series, I had my concerns like, oh, this just isn't going to compare. There's going to be something just off or different about it that was going to maybe rub me the wrong way. But the good news is that I really truly felt like this was a worthy follow-up to that original show if you were a big fan of that original show. I do see it as a worthy follow-up, and I think, I mean, it feels like it's part of the same world. You know what I mean? It feels like it's exactly like the same part of the world. I feel like the writing is the same, the directing is the same, just I guess the overall aesthetic of the show, if that makes sense, just the way it's filmed and choreographed and shot. The costuming is still just as great. I guess the mood, overall mood, tone, vibe, whatever, the aesthetic, as I mentioned, it very much matches. It did. It felt like I was returning to familiar territory, even though this show is set 100 years, you know, after the original series. It just felt like very familiar territory, and I felt like I just kind of slid right back into this world, and it's like I didn't really even pay attention to the fact like, oh, this is a spin-off. You know, it almost didn't really feel like a spin-off in a weird sort of way, if that makes sense. It really just felt like a genuine continuation. I just felt like I was watching the same show again, you know, which was great, because that's what I was looking for. I was looking to kind of just fall back in love with this world and revisit this world, you know, even though it is 100 years after the fact and we're with completely different characters, you know. But the thing is, a lot of these characters, there are numerous references to like who these characters are related to. Like Prince Harold, for instance, what does he say? Is it his grandfather? I think he says his grandfather. Like his grandfather was King Harold / Fine Hair, as he was known, from the original series. And yeah, even Leif Erikson mentions that his father is Eric the Red, which I am assuming that is the same Eric the Red we were introduced to in that final season, correct? And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of name drops. Ragnar is mentioned, Bjorn is mentioned, Ivar is mentioned, Lagertha is mentioned, and we do get a cameo, you guys. I just was not expecting any sort of character from the original series to pop up in this show. We do get a character that pops up. which I don't think I should have been surprised about, because this character definitely, because of who this character was, they could easily just slip on in interesting, unique ways. So when the cameo happened, I was like, yes, this is great, I love it. So yeah, I'm not going to say who the character is, because I was genuinely kind of surprised when he popped up, and I was like, ooh. And what I loved about the original show so much was definitely like that attention to detail, you know, the historical settings, the historical context, the historical clothing and costuming and whatnot. I mean, of course, everything is not totally 100% accurate. You definitely got to take liberties with a show like this and make things appealing for a modern audience. And I definitely do think this show continued that fine attention to detail, not just costuming and whatnot, but I mean just even objects, you know, just the simple little objects that people would hold, or a cup they would hold, you know. I don't know, I'm just a sucker for stuff like that, stuff that really just makes you feel enmeshed into the historical world building and whatnot. And one of the big delights of the original series was definitely like the big, highly choreographed battle sequences and whatnot. I loved some of those amazing battle sequences, whether they were out in a field or in a village or something like that. Yeah, this spin-off series definitely has some truly remarkable battle sequences. There's not really too many of them, but the few that there are, it's like, wow, bravo. I think one of my favorite sequences is, I guess what would it be, the Siege of London Bridge? Wow, that whole sequence, just the way it was shot, edited, it gave you this great sense of claustrophobia, and like you're just right there in the middle of this battle and whatnot, and it's like, okay, some characters could genuinely live or die in this moment. And yeah, that kind of happens fairly early on in the show, and then there is one more larger battle sequence that happens in one of the final episodes, which it was still exciting, but I don't think it was as exciting as the London Bridge sequence, to be quite honest. And another thing about this spin-off show, there's actually only 8 episodes in this first season, and I'm actually glad it was just the 8 episodes. I don't think it really needed to dangle out even further, you know. The original series, I believe the seasons were about 10 episodes, but then God, wasn't those final couple seasons, didn't they go to like 20 episodes, because then they split it like 10 and 10 which was kind of weird. It's like, why don't you just make it a different season? Why was it all still part of the same season at 20 episodes? I don't know. As much as I loved the original series, because the season lengths were a little bit longer, sometimes I did feel like some things were kind of just left simmering for a little too long. It's like, I want to get to the point of whatever this plot is, whatever this character is, you know, and sometimes it just felt like things were kind of hanging around a little too long for too much of a lengthy period. Not that anything ever felt like filler, you know, let me make that clear. I don't think anything in the original series ever really truly felt like filler. I feel like every episode mattered to some extent, but like I said, I think a lot of plot points, some character points, sometimes that would just be a little too lengthy, when I wish some things like that could have been wrapped up a little quicker. So the good thing about this spin-off series being 8 episodes, I seriously really found it to be incredibly tightly focused, tightly packed, really action-packed, and even when there would be the moments that would slow down and we would spend these really great moments with these characters, it's like that was very much needed. You know, I definitely appreciated the slower moments with the characters and really getting to know them and whatnot. So I don't ever feel like there was a single dull, slow moment of this first season for Vikings Valhalla. I think everything moved at a very, very nice pace. We would have the stuff that would move quickly, but then we would have the stuff that would kind of slow down. You get to breathe for a little minute. So I really found all 8 episodes to be almost perfection. Almost perfection from start to finish. Maybe that's a bold statement, I don't know. There's probably people who would beg to differ. I think one of the biggest points of thematic messaging, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too broadly about it, I don't know, but this spin-off show is definitely very strongly focused on pagan culture and Christian culture. Now, yes, the original series definitely dealt with that very strongly, but I think what the big point of difference with Valhalla is, since it is 100 years after the fact, now those two cultures are meshing and blending in. Because I think there are several characters who kind of define themselves as being both pagan and Christian. There are characters who are Viking, they consider themselves Viking, but they're also Christian. So those two worlds of paganism and Christianity are really kind of meshed together in interesting ways that create interesting just personal struggles for some characters, and how should they define themselves? Are they pagan? Are they Christian? Are they some form of both? You know, is that good or bad? Whereas in the original series, it was something that was very divided. You know, you have your pagans here, you have your Christians here, kind of end of story. And I think a character that definitely, kind of how I was interpreting things throughout the season, a character that definitely kind of struggles with identity is definitely Leif Erikson. It's kind of part of what made him a really interesting character. I think he's constantly kind of struggling, okay, am I pagan, am I Christian, what's up with that, you know? And I think I think the final shot, without spoiling anything, I think the final shot of this show kind of gives you a good idea where Leif Erikson, where his mentality is, where he's going to go for the future, I think. So yeah, I'm going to go briefly through the cast of characters really quickly here. I've already kind of mentioned Leif Erikson, played by Sam Cortlett. Sam Cortlett plays Leif Erikson almost rather shy and timid for the time being. His journey, it's like you really have to pay attention to his journey and pay attention to how he's kind of starting at the beginning of the season and how he ends the season, because as I just said, I found Leif Erikson to be almost a rather shy, timid guy, kind of reserved and quiet, but like when he needed to handle the situation and whatnot, like he would really go at it, and he was always about protecting his friends, you know, and his family. But yeah, it's like the way the season ends, I really feel like we're going to get a massively different Leif Erikson in the next season, I'm thinking. That's not going to be as shy and timid, possibly. And I'm definitely excited to see where Leif Erikson goes in another season, because I think we're definitely going to be seeing him broaden his horizons and going out there and going on grand adventures and whatnot. But yeah, I really like Sam Cortlett's performance of Leif Erikson. I previously saw him in Sabrina, the Chilling, yeah, that's what's called, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. When I first heard he was being cast in this show as Leif Erikson, I had my doubts and my concerns at first, but he really won me over. But next up we have Leo Suter. I think that's how his name is pronounced. He plays Prince Harold. Oh my goodness, this man is gorgeous. Gorgeous looking man, not gonna lie, probably my favorite. I loved how Leo Suter played Prince Harold. He definitely has swagger, charm, and charisma. He's a bit of a ladies' man, I think. He sees himself going to great places and doing great things, you know. I definitely cannot wait to see more of Prince Harold in future seasons. We also have Frida Gustafsson, who plays Freydis, who is the sister of Leif Erikson. I really love the character of Freydis as well. She's a complicated, badass woman, which I love. Even though I did like Freydis as a character, I didn't really have any problems with her as a character. Once she kind of splits off from Leif and Harold, I found her individual plotline not the most interesting for me. Not that her plot was boring by any means, but I definitely did not have the biggest interest in her plot whenever the episodes would cut over to her story and whatnot, because I would always find myself going, I want to go back to Harold and Leif, I want to go back to what's going on in London and whatnot, because I personally found everything going on in London to be the most fascinating, with the most fascinating characters. And yeah, Freydis, unfortunately, I felt like she didn't have the best things, I guess. Her stuff, her plot was a little bit more slower and didn't really come into like tighter focus until like kind of the end, you know, like everything starts coming together and it's like, okay, this is why all her stuff was important. We also have Johannes Hokur Johannesson, what a name, who played Olaf, who was like, how did they word it, like the half-brother, right? The half-brother of Prince Harold. it's a complicated family tree. Let's put it that way. Isn't the family trees on Vikings always complicated? I really loved Olaf as well. Oh my god, I love to hate him. That was the thing. I love to hate that dude. It's like he's a crazy man. He's a wild man. He looks after number one pretty much. He's just all over the board this whole show. I feel like he's all over the board, just left and right doing things. He's just up to no good half the time. It's like he'll do things that benefit our heroes, and then he'll do something else that does not benefit our heroes, and it's like, dude, I'm so confused with you, but I like you. We have Bradley Freegard, who plays King Canute. I was pleasantly surprised with this character. I kind of went into this show thinking, I'm not really going to care for this character too much, but boy oh boy, I think Bradley Freegard, I think he genuinely kind of stole the show, especially kind of right there in the middle. It really kind of turned into his show all of a sudden for a couple episodes, when everybody was kind of going after London and charging London Bridge and whatnot. It seriously really turned into his show for a minute. We kind of got away from Leif and Harold and Frades in some ways. But yeah, King Canute, definitely one of the most fascinating, interesting characters on this show, very complex and whatnot, and I love his humor and his banter with other characters, just great. Then we have David Oakes, who plays Earl Godwin. Let me tell y'all, I am a fangirl of David Oakes. I love that man. I think I've seen just about everything on his IMDb page, let me be real. I am just in love with David Oakes. I was really excited when I found out he was going to be on the show, to be quite honest. Earl Godwin, oh my god, Godwin? Wow. He is just everywhere in this plot. I was thinking this while I was watching this show, but then I started kind of reading some other reviews for this show, so I wasn't the only one thinking this, but Earl Godwin was really making me think about the Littlefinger character on Game of Thrones. Littlefinger on Game of Thrones, he was just a master at just his craft, essentially, just really being in all the little pots everywhere, being over here, whispering little things over here, whispering little things over here. Just everything he would plot out just completely worked for him. He was very meticulous in his planning and manipulating things that would benefit him in the long run. You know, he was always playing the long game. And that's kind of how I felt about Godwin. He very much kind of reminded me of the Littlefinger character from Game of Thrones, that Godwin was constantly just doing meticulous little plotting and manipulating, and you would get these fantastic twists and turns with his character, because I was constantly throughout the season thinking, oh my god, Godwin is going to die here, he's going to die here, he's going to die here. Just something was going to happen, that his manipulating went a little too far and he gets himself in trouble. But you would always get all these fantastic twists and turns with Godwin, that he would always, no matter what the situation was, he was always coming out on top. And I love that. I love that about his character. And it genuinely made him just a very fascinating, intriguing character, that anytime he was on screen, I was always curious what the hell was going to happen. And then next up we have Laura Berlin, who plays Emma of Normandy. There are not too many ladies in this show. We kind of just have a few that are the main highlights, but oh wow, Laura Berlin's performance of Emma of Normandy, guys, wow, definitely an extreme highlight. I love just her confidence, her sense of power and control. She never got herself riled up or overly angry or overly emotional. She always just, like I said, she always just seems so in control and so confident. Even if a situation is not going in her way, she always knew the best kind of approach to take, the best course of action that would help herself and her people, you know, and the people around her and whatnot. So yeah, Emma of Normandy, definitely another intriguing, fascinating character, and I loved all of her scenes. Like I said, anything that took place in London, I was always all for those scenes, and I always found myself the most engaged and interested in those moments. And then we have Louis Davison, who played Prince Edmond. Let me tell you about Prince Edmond, you guys. I'm going to throw another Game of Thrones reference in here. I had my concerns that Prince Edmond was just going to be the Joffrey Baratheon If you've seen Game of Thrones, you know how Joffrey was. I was like, oh no, Prince Edmond, he's gonna be like Joffrey. I'm going to find him irritating. I'm going to want him to die immediately. But Prince Edmond kind of surprised me. I mean, he had his moments that I felt like a little bit of a Joffrey type character was coming out in him, but he still ended up pleasantly surprising me that I still found him likable. Like, I found him way more likable than Joffrey from Game of Thrones, you know? Because Joffrey was just straight out evil for the sake of being evil, I felt like, whereas Prince Edmond is definitely much more complex and interesting, I found, and I think sympathetic too to some extent. I love Prince Edmond. I found him absolutely fascinating, and just his interactions with various different characters, especially like Emma and Godwin and Canute especially. I think him and Canute had a very interesting kind of relationship with one another. Canute being a wiser older man, and Edmund being a kind of almost a naive teenager who kind of puts on this performance of being in control and having this brashness and daring, but it's like at the same time he's kind of a scared little boy at the same time, you know. So yeah, that's pretty much all of my thoughts and feelings. In general, I really loved this first season. I'm excited for future seasons. I'm excited for the next season for sure. Hopefully it doesn't linger out for too terribly long. Hopefully it comes sooner rather than later. And I'm just very curious overall where this show is going, what we're leading up to. I mean, I suspect what we're leading up to is William the Conqueror, who conquered, I guess, however you want to word it, England in 1066, which is where, to my understanding, is kind of the start of what we view as the modern English monarchy, I guess. So I'm assuming this show is heading towards William the Conqueror and the Norman conquest of 1066. I'm assuming that's where it's heading, where it's going to probably end. I don't imagine it maybe going past that point, you know, but either way, it does. It makes me excited. I can't wait to see more of these characters. I'm just back to be in familiar. I'm just glad to be back in familiar territory with this world of the Vikings and whatnot, and it is. I just found it a really fun, engaging show, and I just had a good time with it. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on season 1 of Vikings of Valhalla. In the comments below, how did you guys feel about it if you've seen this show already? Did you love the show? Did you not like it? If you didn't like the show, that's absolutely perfectly fine. Just let me know your reasons down below why you maybe didn't latch on to it. And yeah, do you think this was a worthy successor to the original Vikings TV show? Just let me know. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.